Good evening, those in attendance. Welcome to this evening's Condo Review Board dated Monday, October 28, 2024. Pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Condo Review Board will be conducted via remote participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible following the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. Morena, if we could please conduct a roll call vote to ensure we have a quorum.
Okay. Chair Zasloff?
Present.
Vice Chair Byrne?
Present.
Board Member Champion?
Present.
Board Member Simeon?
Present.
Board Member Solis?
Present.
With all in attendance, we have a quorum.
Great. First item on this evening's, or at this time, we will now call this meeting to order. And the first item on tonight's agenda is an administrative item and an update to the condo rules. It's a technical update. Morena, if you want to pull it up for the public. It's non-substantive revisions to the rules. And as I'm sure all members of the board have read through it. Morena, I guess.
Yeah, it's just loading. And I've got to switch the screen that I'm sharing. Stop sharing. Oh, one moment. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So as those in attendance can see, it's very minor technical changes to some of the language.
And Chair Zasloff, Housing Council Joe Thiel has his hand up.
Yes, Joe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, just as a additional context for anyone on the public, this really came up through an issue just with the codification. So when the initial ordinance was passed, there was references made to the ordinance throughout. It then undergoes a codification process to then have the ordinance aligned with other sections of the city code. They were numbered a little bit differently. So in kind of the past few months, this has come up where we just realized the rules aren't entirely as precise as they should be with respect to the correct citation. So this is truly just an administrative matter to correct those citations.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. On that note, I will now make a motion to open the floor for board discussion. If anyone on the board has any comments regarding the revisions to the ordinance.
No comment.
No comment.
All right, seeing there's no sorry.
Sorry, just a point of clarification. This is a revision to the condo board rules, which the board, pursuant to the ordinance, can promulgate. So we're not actually amending the ordinance, which would have to have a city council vote.
Yes, thank you for that correction. Seeing there's no discussion amongst the board, motion to close the floor and make a motion to open the floor for public comments. If anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak regarding the minor changes.
Attorney Vigorito has her hand up, but I'm not sure if it's for this, but I'll allow her to speak and say if it is.
Okay, Attorney Vigorito, the floor is yours.
Apologies. I'm actually here on the next matter, but thank you, Morena. I will see you soon.
All right.
All right.
I don't see any other hands.
All right. Seeing there are no further public comments, motion to close the public commenting period in regards to the rules changes, or the revisions, as I should state. So on that note, I will make a motion for the board to vote on the technical updates to the Condo Review Board language?
You're muted.
Whoops. And sorry, Chair Zasloff, just to be clear, this is to approve the updates to the rules.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a motion to approve the updates to the condominium conversion rules. Chair Zasloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
Yes.
Board Member Champion,
Yes.
Board Member Simeon,
Yes.
Board Member Solis,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Moving along, I'm going to make a motion to consider item 4 out of order. It's a compliance issue related to 29 Everett Avenue. And I would invite Attorney Vigorito. I believe that's why you had your hand up. So motion to hear out of order. I guess I'll pause for 1 second, Miranda. Do I need to put to vote to call this out of order, or can we?
No, you can just call it out of order.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I think that because the tenants had requested the hearing, that it may, for just the order of things, it may make more sense for them to go first.
No problem. Absolutely. So we'll invite Attorney Libin, who is counsel for the tenants at 29 Everett Avenue. If they would like to make an opening statement.
Sorry, I just want to note that, I don't know what you can see or what I can see, but Joseph Thiel also has his hand up.
Okay.
So through the chair, so just to clarify processes, I know there was a request for this matter to be continued. So I think it does make sense for the board, and the board can hear arguments from both parties, but I think it's most efficient for the board and the attorneys to focus exclusively first on the issue of whether the matter should be continued to a later meeting. And then based off of that, the board should take a vote on that, whether it wants to continue, and then I think we can proceed accordingly. But I think it just makes sense to try to keep those matters separate. So thank you.
Yes, exactly. As Joe has alluded to, this is to address the request for a continuation in regards to 29 Everett Ave. So I think with that clarification, I think I'd like to hear from Attorney Vigorito first to make a brief statement on her request for the continuation, and then we will hear from the tenant's attorneys.
Hello. Sorry about that. I wasn't sure. I had to unmute myself. Attorney Ann Vigorito, 424 Broadway, Somerville. So we had gotten notice some time ago about 29 Everett Ave appearing this evening, the tenants. So we had worked on an opposition that was going to be submitted today. It was very brief. I received a call from Brianna Rowland from my office, who's an attorney there as well. And I was in court. I think she called me about 12:15 today saying she received a voluminous package from the tenants council. And, even in, being a trial attorney myself, you need time to process. I mean, I had other meetings. I started to skim through it, but I also do feel I'd be doing my client a disservice, the owner of the property, to not review it with him and have him present for that. We originally didn't think his presence would be necessary, but now, looking at what is being sent, I do think it makes more sense so that we can have a reply brief to what the tenants council provided. I also think the board probably needs time to go through the voluminous amount of paperwork that was sent today. So with all due respect, I think it serves the best interest of all parties to have this matter continued. I believe the November hearing is Monday, November 25th. So it's 4 weeks away. I think it would give ample time to have a response. Thank you.
Thank you. And now if we could hear from the attorney representing the tenants at 29 Everett Ave. And please keep it to the subject matter at hand, which is whether this compliance issue should be considered under a continuation at a special meeting.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So our office does object to a continuation of this hearing. As an initial matter, I'm not available on the 25th. I'm not working that day. It's been scheduled for quite a while, so that would be quite prejudicial to my clients to not have me there. I would also say, although it's being characterized as voluminous records, all the documents we submitted are already in the possession of the landlord. Most of them were prepared by the landlord. It's, a notice to quit that they prepared, a summons and complaint that they prepared, text messages between the parties. It's nothing new. And the arguments we're making are also nothing new. They're arguments that have been made to council for over a month at this point. I've sent council the ordinance, the reply brief that the council did submit responds to our position, so they clearly understand our position. The only new documents we've submitted are proof of income, proof that our clients are either low, moderate income and or disabled. That really should not take very long to review. If they didn't have time today, at a minimum, I think the conversation could go forward about whether the rights have vested under the ordinance, and if they must take additional time to confirm whether the documents demonstrate that our clients are low, moderate income or disabled, perhaps that issue could be continued. But there's really nothing we've submitted that they haven't been on notice of, for months at this point. So we do object and don't think additional time is needed.
Okay. Thank you very much for your statement, along with Attorney Vigorito. For the board's knowledge, couple of things that we need to consider in regards to potential continuation. There are non-public standard operating procedures that do stipulate that materials to be considered by the board should be provided to the board and opposing parties at least 2 business days, 48 hours prior to the board meeting. In addition, the standard operating procedures state that in the event materials are not provided to the board and or other party at least 2 business days prior to the board meeting, the board shall have the right to a continuance. And third, while the parties may not have knowledge of this requirement, is keeping with board's past practices and aims to have all parties fully prepared for a hearing. Denying the owner and their representatives the opportunity to review allegations and provide written testimony may infringe on the owner's due process rights and increase the likelihood of reversal of a board finding. And in conclusion, it is not immediately clear that a continuance would deny the tenant's ability to introduce the conversion ordinance as evidence in any eviction proceeding at the housing court. So with those considerations, I would open the floor for board discussion in regards to a continuation. I would propose that we hold a special hearing and dates that we've potentially marked as an opportunity to have that special hearing would be 11/13, November 13th, November 21st, or November 22nd. So at this time, the floor is open for board discussion.
This is Jennifer. May I speak?
Absolutely, board member Solis.
I have a question. I don't know. Is there eviction proceedings that the decision of the condo ordinance, that our decision could impact? And if so, what's the timing of that? And like, how do we handle sort of that? Or is that, does that feed into our decision as the condo review board, or is that something separate?
I would defer to the city staff, but my understanding, again, I defer to the city staff on that question in regards to the eviction proceedings.
And Chair Vassal, through you, so I think the both of the tenants representative and owners representative can speak a little bit more to the facts of the timing on the proceeding, but we have received written documentation that states that there is an active matter related to this property at the housing court and these tenants. My understanding is that there is currently not a date set. For the board's reference, I would advise that, and just on the matter of continuation, I think we do need to be clear that that really is a separate matter for the housing court, and the board doesn't have the jurisdiction necessarily to impose or stipulate a remedy for that court or parties' actions with respect to that proceeding. The board's findings may be introduced as evidence if the representatives so choose. So there could be some value to that, but I think just try to separate those out if you're thinking about it. In that we can't necessarily, the board doesn't have the jurisdiction to make a requirement of the housing court, but certainly, depending on the posture of the case, there may be similar issues of fact that may be instructive for the board to have a finding on. But I think to your practical question of, well, do they have upcoming hearings? Does it matter? Is it in the interest of all parties to have a board determination before any of those legal proceedings? I think that would be best answered by the parties' representatives.
Board Member Solis, does that help you?
So if I could just, Attorney Thiel, if I could just reiterate my layperson's understanding of what you said, and if you could say, so basically, I do understand we don't have any jurisdiction or any involvement in determining or working in connection with the housing court or whatever, that it's separate. I totally get that. But I guess I would just, if it is in the best interest of both parties to have a decision, would that be something we considered, I guess? And if so, I guess to your point, could we see what they say? I think you're saying we don't get involved with that, but if we don't get involved with the housing court, it's separate, that's not us. But if both parties here were expressing that a decision by a certain date would be full to both parties, we could potentially move the next meeting to a date that worked for them. Is that if it could potentially be helpful for both parties, and it's not picking a certain date does not show any favoritism on either side, that might be a good decision for everyone. Sorry, maybe I'm getting ahead of things.
I think with the proposed 3 dates that we would, for a continuation, if that was to be determined, we would need that 2-week public hearing notice period. So the earliest we could meet would be November 13th, and then the other 2 days were chosen because it was pulled forward from the 11/25 date that was going to be not conducive for the tenant's attorneys.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you. I think I understand.
Okay. Any other commentary from the board regarding a potential continuation?
But so far, that's Member Simeon. So far, we have only the 13th because since 25th it's not good for the attorney.
The tenant's attorney is unavailable on the 25th,
On the 25th, yes.
and
And
then
then we have only the 13th.
or the 21st or the 22nd. I mean, honestly, you know, I'm available any of those days prior to the 25th, but after a 2-week public hearing notice. So it would have to be within the 13th and the 24th is,
Chair Zasloff, if I may, I'm happy to coordinate sort of offline the actual date, keeping in mind the 2-week requirement. So that we can try to find something that works for the board and then coordinate with the parties' representatives.
That sounds good. Thank you. Mhm.
This is Jennifer again. Am I allowed to ask a question during the board comment period to one of the attorneys?
only if I would recommend only asking a question in relation to the continuance, because that is the matter that we've taken up at this time.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm not sure if I can ask this or not, but I've just wonder what would be negative about it, how it would it negatively impact them if there was a continuance that was a date that was available for both lawyers to attend? Am I allowed to ask that? I guess I'm just concerned because I don't see a negative of postponing it as long as both sides are represented. But I'm nervous that there is some downside that I'm not seeing that, is negatively impacting someone. So I just kind of feel unsure of why it's not, why someone wouldn't want to let everybody read everything.
Right. Lorena, did you have something to say?
I was just going to ask if Member Solis, do you want me to unmute the tenants representatives then? Is that question directed to?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
let's,
sorry, that's if allowed and if pertinent and if following, if that's allowed for us to hear that information, it would be directed at the tenant's representative.
Chair Zasloff, that's.
yep. So I will now motion to close the floor amongst the board and open the floor for the tenant's representative to speak.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to address that question, which relates to the earlier question about whether there is an eviction proceeding pending. There is an eviction proceeding pending against one of the 2 tenants that we represent. That case was recently filed. There's currently no hearing date scheduled, but it could be scheduled rather quickly. And my belief of the rules is that there has to be like a 2-week notice period for that hearing as well. So I do think that if this matter is continued, if we pick a special date that's much sooner to ensure that this decision is made and the board can hear this issue prior to the hearing, that would be in the interest of all parties, because the board's decision, while it does not have jurisdiction over the housing court, it does directly impact the case and, sort of what's being raised in the case. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does, and I have a question for you. So are you proposing that November 13th is too far out?
No, I'm not. I'm not necessarily saying that. I think the 21st and the dates thereafter may be too far out, only because we don't exactly know how quickly the court date will be scheduled. Personally, if this were going to be continued, I would be okay with the 13th, but I would have to check with my client.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I see Attorney Vigorito has her hand up. I would give her the opportunity to address the board.
Good evening once again, Ann Vigorito here. This matter is actually in the Somerville District Court. It's not in the Housing Court. And the district court is very good with rescheduling of dates. I do it all the time, especially in eviction matters, because many times, attorneys are conferring and the hope is to get to a resolution. So my thought process here is we're not tied to a 2-week date or anything of that nature. I mean, I know it's tough sometimes, attorney schedules can clash, but I will hold out that my office, I'm not the attorney on the eviction, it's Attorney Rowland, but I can hold out that, the case will be continued so that it can be well after any hearing before this board. We could move it to December. It would be fine.
Okay, but in the short term, for moving the meeting along, would November 13th?
No, it would not, because I have a neighborhood meeting that evening, so I cannot do the 13th. I can do the 22nd of November. I can't do the 21st because I have a land use. Somerville keeps us busy. But I think, as you said, the week before the 25th, I do have times available that week as well. It's just the 21st will not work.
So I would defer to city staff. Can we have an open discussion on preferred dates that would work for both attorneys?
Sure, that's fine. I just, I think it may be, something that we can also just do through an email poll or,
Okay, so I guess just in ensuring that the tenant's attorney is comfortable and the tenants are also comfortable, the preferred window is anytime before the 25th, preferably sooner than later. But within the 2-week notice period or outside the 2-week notice period. That would be Attorney Libin. You're on mute if you're trying to speak.
Can you hear me? Yes. So yes,
You've muted again. Sorry.
am I off mute? I'm sorry. So our preference would be the week of the 11th.
So I would, I'm just pulling up a calendar. 12th, according to the 2-week notice period, correct? Miranda?
so today, so, we could do the 12th. Yes.
So again, I would propose.
Did we lose?
I believe I'm back now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay.
The internet's giving me fits tonight. Sorry about that. As I was saying, I would propose the 12th, 13th, or 14th as 3 dates. I would hope that the 2 attorneys could agree on one of those dates and we can move forward with continuing this matter. So, again, I will motion open the floor for board discussion. If any board members have any objections to those 3 dates. Do they fit your personal calendars for a special hearing? This would be the only item on the agenda that night.
I'm okay with that one. Either or.
Seeing that the board is in agreement on those, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Byrne.
I just haven't had a chance to check my calendar yet, so if you can just give me another minute.
Yeah.
The 13th is out for me, but the 12th is fine.
Right. So on that note, it looks like the board is in agreement that the 12th fits our schedules. I would hope that the two attorneys representing their parties can make that work. And we can move forward at this point with a motion to continue this compliance hearing in regards to 29 Everett Avenue. Make a motion to vote on that continuance for November 12th. to
Okay,
hold a special hearing.
okay, this is a motion to continue the matter of 29 Everett Ave to a special hearing on November 12th. Chair Zasloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
Yes.
Board Member Champion.
Yes, so sorry, Marina. I just wanted to make sure the Attorney Vigorito has her hand up and has a comment in the Q&A. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not sure if that was the previous comment.
That's previous. Yep.
Previous, okay, perfect. Sorry, sounds good. Yes, yes.
Board Member Simeon,
Yes.
Board Member Solis,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. All right, now moving on to item 3, which is new business and the applications for final or courtesy permits. First item on this evening's agenda is 16 Hamlet Street. And that is the application of 16 Hamlet Street, Somerville LLC, Jason Santana, and he's seeking a final conversion permit for units 1 and 2 located at 16 Hamlet Street. Previously, we had approved courtesy permits for units 3 and 4.
Hello, this is Jason Santana. I'm kind of nervous after the last one. Represent 16 Hamlet Street, Somerville, seeking the final conversion. Unit 1 and 2. So just to recap, this is a property that we bought empty. We provided affidavit from the previous owners stating that they lived in the house. We're going from 2 units to 4 units. It's going to be a triple decker with a accessory building on the back. If you guys have any other questions, I'm glad to respond.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Santana. I will now motion to open the floor for board discussion. If anyone on the board has questions for Mr. Santana in regards to units 1 and 2 at 16 Hamlet Street. Seeing there is no discussion amongst the board, motion to close the floor and motion to open the public commenting period. If anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against the application at 16 Hamlet Street, now would be the time to do so.
I don't see any hands.
All right. Motion to close public commenting and reviewing the application. At this time, we have all the documentation in hand. The 2 outstanding items we were awaiting were the master deed and the engineer architect's report, which has been submitted. So that closes out the application process in regards to outstanding documents. So at this time, I will now make a motion for the board to vote on the final conversion permit for 16 Hamlet Street's units 1 and 2.
Okay, this is a vote for final conversion permits for units 1 and 2 at 16 Hamlet Street. Chair Zasloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
Yes.
Board Member Champion,
Yes.
Board Member Simeon,
Yes.
Board Member Solis,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santana.
Thank you. I believe I'm the next one, so I'll be here.
All right. Moving along, next application in front of the board is that of 34 Fisk Avenue, Somerville LLC, represented by Mr. Jason Santana. He's in front of the board seeking a final conversion permit for units 1 and unit 2 and a courtesy permit for units 3.
Hello, this is Jason Santana, representing 34 Fisk Avenue, Somerville LLC, seeking the final conversion permits. This is a similar scenario. We bought this property empty. The homeowners that sold us the property provide us affidavit and documentation proving that and that they were not rented prior or they didn't put anybody out. We're changing these 2 units to a 3-unit property.
Thank you very much for that. Motion to open the floor for board discussion. Any board members have questions for Mr. Santana in regards to 34 Fisk Avenue?
No questions.
Seeing that there is no comments, questions amongst the board, the motion to close the floor. And the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against the application for 34 Fisk Avenue. Now would be the time to do so.
I don't see any hands.
Okay, great, thank you. Motion to close the public commenting. At this time, all documentation has been submitted. We have the residential exemption. We have the certificate of good standing, which was submitted previously. We have a paid water bill submitted previously. The quick claim deed submitted previously. The items we were awaiting at this time was the master deed and the engineer's report, which is also submitted. And we have the check in the amount of $1,200. So at this time, I'm comfortable making a motion for the board to vote on the final conversion permits for units 1 and 2 and a courtesy permit for unit 3 located at 34 Fisk Avenue.
Okay, this is a vote for final conversion permits for units 1 and 2 and a courtesy permit for unit 3 at 34 Fisk Avenue. Chair Zasloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
Yes.
Board Member Champion,
Yes.
Board Member Simeon,
Yes.
Board Member Solis.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Moving along through the agenda, the next item up for a final conversion permit this evening is the application of 17 Crocker LLC, James Douglas and Dago Ponce, seeking a final conversion permit for units 1 and 2 located at 17 Crocker Street.
Could the representative please raise their virtual hand? Thank you.
Hi, guys. This is Matthew Spang. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, great. My name is Matthew Spang. I'm the attorney representing the 17 Crocker LLC. Tonight, we were before the board for seeking 2 final non-rental conversion permits for units 1 and 2 at 17 Crocker Street in Somerville. Property is an existing 2-family house that was owner occupied by 2 sisters prior to my client's purchase of the property in December of 23. Submitted with the completed application is an affidavit regarding the occupancy from the previous owner, an MLC showing the residential exemption, a certificate of good standing, paid final water bill, quick claim deed, copy of the check to the city of Somerville for $1,200, an engineer's report, and a master deed.
All right, thank you for that. At this time, I will make a motion to open the floor for board discussion on the final permit for units 1 and 2 located at 17 Crocker Street.
No comment.
No comment.
Thank you. Seeing there's no comments or questions from the board, motion to close the floor. And motion to open the public commenting period. If anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against this application at 17 Crocker Street, now would be the time to do so.
I don't see any hands.
Thank you. Motion to close the public commenting period. In reviewing all the documentation, as the representative stated, previously owner occupied, no notice given, residential exemption. We have the certificate of good standing. We have a final paid water bill. We have the quitclaim deed. We have a copy of the master deed, copy of the engineer's report, and a check in the amount of $1,200 to cover the 2 units in question. So at this time, with everything in order, I'm comfortable making a motion for the board to vote on a final conversion permit for 17 Crocker Street, units 1 and 2.
Okay, this is a vote for final conversion permits for units 1 and 2 at 17 Crocker Street. Chair Zaslav,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
Yes.
Board Member Champion,
Yes.
Board Member Simeon,
Yes.
Board Member Solis.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and the last application for final permits this evening is the application of RJM Development LLC, Richard Monagle, who's seeking a final conversion permit for units 1 and 2 located at 18 Windsor Road.
Hi, this is attorney John Masciarelli. Representing RGM Development LLC for the conversion of 18 Windsor Road, units 1 and 2. We have provided to the board a check in the amount of $1,200, an application of the condominium conversion for units A and B, duly signed and notarized affidavit of the previous owners that the property was never tenanted, certificate of good standing from the city of Somerville, a paid final water bill, a copy of the current deed, property condition report from the MZO group, and a copy of the master deed. We are hereby seeking approval for units A and B, please.
All right, thank you very much. I will now make a motion to open the floor for board discussion for 18 Windsor Road. If anyone on the board has comments or questions for the representative.
No questions.
Chair Zaslav, if I may, ask the attorney a clarifying question.
Sure.
You said it's for units A and B. Have the units been renumbered? I've got them down as 1 and 2.
The city of Somerville, when my client went to pay the water bills, they had them listed as units A and B. So that is what we went with.
Okay, so that's what you're gonna keep.
Please.
Okay, so A and B. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing no questions, motion to close the floor for board discussion and motion to open the floor for public commenting. If anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against the final conversion permits for your units A and B located at 18 Windsor Road, now would be the time to do so.
I don't see any hands.
All right, thank you. Public comment, motion to close the floor for public comments. In reviewing the application and the documentation, previously owner occupied, affidavit in hand to prove that. We have the residential exemption, also a certificate of good standing, paid water bill, quitclaim deed, the master deed, and the engineer's report has been submitted. And we have a check in the amount of $1,200. So at this time, I'm comfortable making a motion for the board to vote on a final conversion permits for units A and B located at 18 Windsor Road.
Okay, this is a vote for final conversion permits for units A and B at 18 Windsor Road. Chair Zasloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
Yes.
Board Member Champion,
Yes.
Board Member Simeon,
Yes.
Board Member Solis.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the preliminary condo conversion permits. And the next application in front of the board this evening is that of KTA Construction LLC, Frank Amato, who's in front of the board seeking a preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3, all located 227 Highland Avenue.
Hello, this is Michael LaRosa on behalf of the applicant for 227 Highland Ave.
Do we have a representative of this property?
Oh,
Can you
Chair
hear me?
Zasloff, can you hear Mr. LaRosa? I think
Hello?
he may have frozen.
I think I did freeze.
Can you folks hear me?
Mr. LaRosa, I can hear you. We're just waiting for.
I think my connection's been reestablished. Are you? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Michael LaRosa. I'm an attorney, 161 3rd Street in Cambridge, Mass, representing the applicant for 227 Highland Ave. Seeking the preliminary permit. We've submitted the application, any applicable affidavits, good standing, final water bill that's paid. Actually, there's a credit on it. Copy of the current deed and the check for $1,800 for the 3 units located at 227 Highland, for which we're seeking the permit.
All right, thank you very much. I will now make a motion to open the floor for board discussion in regards to 227 Highland Avenue, units 1, 2, and 3. Seeing there is no discussion or questions from the board, I will now motion to close the floor. Motion to open the public commenting period. If anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against this application at 227 Highland Avenue, now would be the time to do so.
I don't see any hands.
Okay, public commenting period is now closed. In reviewing the application for units 1, 2, and 3, there is the 1-year waiting period. Notice was provided by the applicant. We have a certificate of good standing submitted, a final paid water bill as of 10/16. We have the quitclaim deed, and we have a check in the amount of $1,800. At this time, we are still awaiting a master deed and an engineer's report to be submitted. So I'll motion to take a vote on the preliminary condo conversion, preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3, located at 227 Highland Avenue, on the condition that the master deed and engineer's report is submitted to the city staff at a future date.
Okay, this is a vote for preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3 at 227 Highland Ave, conditioned as Chair Zasloff just stated. Chair Zasloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
Yes.
Board Member Champion,
Yes.
Board Member Simeon,
Yes.
Board Member Solis.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. All right, moving along, next application in front of the board for a preliminary condo conversion permit is the application of Frank John Kelly and Kimberly Ann Rago, who are seeking a preliminary rental conversion permit for unit 25 and a preliminary non-rental conversion permit for unit 23, located at 23-25 Irvington Road.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
You can.
Perfect. Attorney Cameron McGinn here of Pressman and Kruskal. I represent Frank John Kelly and Kimberly Ann Rigo, who are seeking a preliminary non-rental conversion permit for Unit 23 of 23 to 25 Irvington Road and a preliminary rental conversion permit for Unit 25 of said property. We've submitted the preliminary application and applicable affidavits, as well as the tenant documents and confirmation of notice to the tenants. One tenant, we have a witness signing off that notice was provided. The other tenant, we have the signature of the tenant and the witness. We've also submitted a certificate of good standing, paid a final water bill, the deed into the applicant, a check for $1,200, and an affidavit of owner occupancy for Unit 23 only. With supporting documentation, we have provided 12 months of utility bills. The property condition report and master deed are to be provided in the future at the final conversion permit hearing. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I will now motion to open the floor for board discussion. If there's any comments or questions for the applicant who's seeking preliminary non-rental conversion permit for 23 and a preliminary rental conversion permit for Unit 25 located at 23-25 Irvington Road. Seeing there's no commentary or discussion amongst the board, I will now motion to close the floor. Motion to open the public commenting period for 23-25 Irvington Road. Anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against this application, now would be the time to do so.
I don't see any hands.
Thank you. Motion to close the public commenting period. In reviewing what the representative discussed. One unit was owner occupied. The other unit, Unit 25 is tenanted. There is the waiting period. Notice was provided. In relation to the documents, we have the certificate of good standing dated 10/3. We have a final water bill submitted as of 10/3. We have the quitclaim deed, and we have a check in the amount of $1,200. At this time, we are still awaiting 2 outstanding items, which would be the master deed and engineer architect's report. So I'm comfortable making a motion for the board to vote on the preliminary non-rental conversion permit for Unit 23 and a preliminary rental permit for Unit 25 located at 23-25 Irvington Road on the condition that the master deed and engineer's report is submitted to city staff at a future date.
Okay, this is a vote for preliminary rental conversion permit for Unit 25 and preliminary non-rental conversion permit for Unit 23 at 23-25 Irvington Road, conditioned as Chair Zasloff just stated. Chair Zasloff?
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne?
Yes.
Board Member Champion?
Yes.
Board Member Simeon?
Yes.
Board Member Solis?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Well, I'm staying on for the next one.
Right. All right. So
Can't get rid of me yet.
next application in front of the board is 58-60 Boston Ave, and that's the application of Mohammed Hussein and Mr. Muntadar. I'm sorry if I mispronounced either of those names. They are both seeking a preliminary rental conversion permits for Units 1 and Unit 2, located at 58-60 Boston Ave.
Thank you. Cameron McGinn from Pressman and Kruskal again. I represent the applicant I've submitted the preliminary condominium conversion application with the property and owner information, applicable affidavits. There are no current tenants in the property. However, there were tenants over the past 12 months. I have provided an affidavit showing our attempts to reach the former tenants, excuse me. We were able to reach one who has signed a waiver of certified mailing, and the other, we have submitted a chart of outreach to them. Additionally, we have provided a certificate of good standing, final water bill and paid receipt, copy of the deed, a certified check for $1,200, and the property condition report. And the master deed will be submitted at a later time. So for those reasons, we are submitting an application for a preliminary
Thank you very
rental
much.
conversion permit for
Motion to open the floor
units
for
1 and
board
2.
discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Any questions or comments from the board? Any comments or questions from the board? Motion to open the floor. Seeing no comments. Motion to close the floor for board commentary and motion to open the floor for public commentary. If anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against the application at 58 -60 Boston Ave, now would be the time to do so.
I do have one hand.
Okay.
Hi there. My name is Catherine Sayo, and I was the tenant at 60 Boston Ave for 15 years. My landlord sold the building to these folks. So I was living there, but I'm curious as to what tenant rights are. I'm 75 and disabled, and I pretty much had to move all on my own. And I'm curious about what tenant rights are in a situation like this.
Yes, I mean, what was the building? Were you asked to leave prior to the sale?
Yes. And I did work it out. My landlord, we worked out dates and timing and stuff. And I asked if it was going condo and if I could get support in the moving process. And I was never told that it was going condo, and I didn't get any support in the moving process.
That's unfortunate to hear.
I'm happy to jump in if you'd like to hear from me.
Yeah, we'll give you time to speak. I think first I'd like to hear from my fellow board members. So I'm going to open the floor for board member discussion following that testimony from the former tenant. Board member Solis, floor is yours.
To the former tenant, can you just briefly tell us the timeline of when your lease was up and when you were told about the sale and when you were, when you did leave, just a little bit more about the timing of that,
Sure.
including the conversation where you directly asked if it was going to be turned into condos?
My landlord let me know in the fall last year. It was in the fall. And he asked for both me and my neighbor to be out by April. As I said, I'm 75 and disabled, and I couldn't do that. I was able to get out in July at great effort. But I did ask at some point if it was gonna go condo and if there was any kind of support to help me move. And I never got an answer, so I didn't push it. Graham moved out in April. And I negotiated with them to stay till July because the sale went through, I believe, in July.
And were you in a lease situation at that point?
No, I was a tenant at will. I had a lease. As I said, I was there for 15 years. And he just didn't keep renewing the lease.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I don't know if my other colleagues on the board have questions around intent. I don't expressed intent. I mean, I don't know.
Yes, this is member Simeon. If I understand, you leave on July 31st. And at that point, let me ask that again, because I'm not sure if you already respond to that. You are out of your rent ended at that time. You are on the middle of your rental policy, or you are out of it based on.
I moved out on July 23rd.
Yes, but you didn't have any commitment you done, since you said, you know, the lease is it's a yearly renewal. That's what it was, right?
No, she stated it formerly was, and then he would not renew it. It was month to month.
Okay, so it's a month to month.
Yeah, it wasn't that he wouldn't renew it. It's just that, I mean, after so many years,
Okay,
we just kept going.
keep going. Yeah, I understand. Okay.
Any other board members have questions for the former tenant
Yeah, I do.
and or attorney?
No,
Yep,
I
Vice Chair.
Yeah, I actually have more of a statement than a question, because I found this to be particularly frustrating in this case, that the owner sold with an agreement in the purchase and sale agreement that the building would be empty. And that way they didn't have to provide any protective services for the tenants. And I think this is, I mean, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. And it seems really outrageous that, you know, you could be forced at your age and your disability to have moved when under the condo ordinance, if they had just admitted what they were doing, you would have gotten 5 years to find a new place. You would have gotten money to support it. And because they just refused to give you an answer and be honest about what they were doing, this is the situation we're in. And I'm really sorry that this happened to you.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, thank you. I kept asking and I kept wondering, why are they not responding? Yeah. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my internet's having trouble, but I know I support what Vice Chair Byrne was saying. This is very frustrating. You know, a 15-year tenant who had a good relationship with the former landlord, the fact that you know, he wouldn't be truthful with you or offer you some sort of assistance in moving is quite concerning and downright infuriating. So you know, I would just make a statement to the attorney who's representing the two individuals in front of the board tonight. While you're not required, I would highly suggest that in good faith, you reach out to this tenant who's been displaced at the age of 75 and offer some sort of compensation for what will ultimately be a lucrative real estate deal for your two clients. I'm curious what the attorney representing 5860 Boston Ave has to say.
Thank you. Attorney Cameron McGinn here for the applicants. We certainly sympathize with the situation here. I do want to emphatically state that that my client had no knowledge of this communication between the tenant and the prior landlord. My tenants did not decide to go ahead with a condominium conversion until after the closing. We did not discuss anything with the prior owner or their attorney about a condominium conversion. Prior to the closing, the purchase and sale stated that the property would be delivered vacant. My client had debated back and forth on whether they wanted to convert. We ultimately, my client did move forward with the conversion. We reached out to the prior owner who gave us the contact information for both tenants. And at that point, we reached out, as you can see from our application materials. So, from my client's perspective, this was a property that they purchased, that they did not have knowledge that they were displacing, tenants of that age. And of course, our sympathies are with the tenant. But just to be clear, while these inquiries may have been made to the former owner, we had no contact with the former owner until after the closing regarding the tenant contact information. The only contact prior to closing was, of course, the transactional aspect, which was conducted through the attorneys or their agents.
Yeah. While, legally they're not obligated, there is, a humanity aspect that I would think would be considered here in approaching this from a perspective of making a wrong a right. We've had instances in front of the board similar to this one, and the new ownership did the right thing and provided assistance to the previous tenant. It was 2 meetings ago, I believe 2 or 3 meetings ago, which we had a similar instance, and that applicant, rose to the forefront and did the right thing by the former tenant. And I would, implore you and your applicants to do the same in the situation. Stating sympathy for the individual, to me, just it just doesn't sit right with myself, and I would implore you to convince your applicants to do the right thing.
Understood. And I do hear that. I will certainly present this to my client and discuss with them. And I appreciate the board's comments and perspective on this.
How many properties have your clients converted in the city of Somerville to date?
My understanding is this is the only property they've converted, or they're working on converting.
Mm-hmm. And do they intend to continue to convert properties following this one?
That is not my understanding, but I can certainly ask them. They are not sort of large scale developer or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Can I ask if they've converted condos in other towns?
You know, I do not believe so, just based on the fact that based on the questions they asked me about this conversion, it gave me the impression that this was a new matter for them. But I have not directly asked them that question, so I could go back to them and ask.
Yeah, that's not necessary. I just want to state for the record that I find, again, this is an example of the limits that the ordinance has. And while I understand that we can't vote outside of the purpose of the ordinance and what that entails, I find this to be a grave problem and an example of, just it's not catching, it's just not catching, the safety net is not catching the people that it needs to catch or supporting the people that it needs to support. And I also want to state for the record that in most cases, and I'm not saying this case specifically, I do not believe that people do not have the intention of converting to condos when they're buying a property that says in the purchase and sales that it's going to be delivered vacant in this market, in this neighborhood. And so I just don't believe it. It's frustrating. And, this is like, I don't know. I implore you to talk to your client and like Chair Zaslow has stated, but also I just want it to be known that regardless of how I vote, I have got to vote within these limits, but doesn't mean that I believe, that we're not being taken for a run here. And that's annoying.
Agreed. Again, you're gonna have to come in front of this board for your final permit, and you do have ample time to convince your clients to do what I would consider the right thing by this former tenant. I can't hold your feet to the fire on that within the ordinance rules, but again, there's a humane aspect to this, and again, I would highly encourage you to convince the applicants to do the right thing.
I just want to say I totally agree with
Do
everything that you've said so far, and I really appreciate the other board members who are also feeling the same outrage that I am. And I just find it so offensive that this is how it can go down. It's just so, yes, please, ask your folks who are gonna make good money off of this, and who probably already have a place to live, that they do something to compensate the 75-year-old woman that they've displaced.
Agreed.
Understood. Thank you all for the feedback. I will bring this to my client.
Okay, any other commentary from the board?
Quick question. Is there anything the tenant can, it's just on the timing. So it wouldn't be, she was out before the sale. So, I mean, there's no other avenue she can look at, right? Like, if someone came to the house before the sale and separated the meters or something, is there anything that would show intent? It wouldn't matter if it was shown by the former owner, because it's not the new guys that are applying. I'm just wondering, is there anything as a takeaway for her? Is there anything else to explore, or, is it sort of, we've covered it and it's unfortunate?
I have to say that I hesitated coming to this meeting, and I just want to thank you. It was so hard, and just hearing it validated that I wasn't crazy is helping me. Thank you.
We're certainly glad it's helping. We just, we have limits we have to work within, but we take that seriously. But we also take seriously that those limits sometimes prevent us from doing what we would like to do.
I totally understand. I'm just grateful. Thank you, Jennifer, Kate, Zachary. I will pray for your names. Thank you.
Thank you. I wish there was more we could do. Hopefully, the attorney representing him and the two individuals developing this property who I'm sure are listening closely or getting updates, take to heart your testimony and the words from the board. Because, you know, I will personally remember these two developer names when they come in front of the board again, whether it's for the final permit or any future project. And I will also remember Attorney McGinn in her representation, if in fact these two do not have the conscience to do the right thing by this former tenant. So on that note, I will close the floor for board discussion, open the floor for public commentary. If anyone in the virtual audience in favor or against this application, now would be the time to do so, which I believe was Catherine. Is there anyone else in the virtual audience, Morena?
I don't see any hands.
All right. On that note, public commenting period for 58-60 Boston Avenue is closed. Unfortunately, I have to move forward with a motion to vote on a preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1 and 2 located at 58-60 Boston Avenue. On the condition that a master deed and an engineer's report is submitted at a future date. And I would also just like to state for the record that we are making the recommendation that the two owner applicants do right by compensating Ms. Catherine Seo for her displacement and trauma and lived experience that she had to go through. So on that note.
Okay, this is a vote for preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1 and 2 at 58-60 Boston Avenue, with the recommendation that Chair Zasloff just stated. Chair Zasloff,
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne,
No.
Board Member Champion,
Yes, on the conditions that Chair Zasloff mentioned.
Board Member Simeon,
The same conditions, yes.
Board Member Solis,
Yes.
with 4 yeses and a no, the motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
All right, moving along, next application from the board of Donna and Jerome Lindowski seeking a preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3 at 17 Buckingham Street.
Good evening, Attorney Ann Vigorito on behalf of the applicant, Donna and Jerome Ladowski, 17 Buckingham Street condominiums, units 1, 2, and 3. The applicants are requesting a preliminary rental condominium conversion permit, which is located at 17 Buckingham Street. You do have in my application, the completed application pages 1 through 10, a paid final water bill with a receipt, certificate of good standing from the city of Somerville, a quick claim deed dated May 2nd of 1983. And then you have another quick claim deed dated March 12th of 2007. You have an owner's affidavit, and you also have payment in the amount of $1,800. So the applicants originally purchased the property on or about May 2nd of 1983. The applicants have jointly owned the property since March 12th of 2007. The property became vacant on or about September 16th of 2023. There was a significant fire which damaged the property, and since that date, the property has remained vacant. Our contention is the purpose of the ordinance has been met. The property has been vacant for over a year prior to submitting this application. That being the case, the applicant is respectfully requesting a preliminary rental condominium conversion permit for units 1, 2, and 3 at 17 Buckingham Street. You do not have a master deed nor a structural engineer's report at this time, and the 1-year waiting period needs to toll. So we would, we'd be requesting a preliminary at this time. Thank you. I will mute myself. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Attorney Vigorito. On that note, motion to open the floor for board discussion. Questions for Attorney Vigorito on the application of 17 Buckingham Street? Board Member Solis, I didn't know if...
Sorry, it was purchased in the 80s, but then there was a change to the co-owners in 2000. Do that timeline again for me. I'm so sorry.
Okay. It's generally in my application. So back in 1983, Donna, which was formerly known as Donna Foley, originally purchased the property on May 2nd of 1983. The applicants have jointly owned the property since March 12th of 2007. I believe, without getting too personal, she married Mr. Ladowski, so they, jointly owned it.
All right, thank you. I thought that was, I just couldn't tell if I was missing something, and then I didn't.
And you don't want to ask people anymore. I don't want to offend anyone, but I do believe that's what occurred.
Okay, all right. And then just another question, just because we've had some instances where there's been some kind of damage and then it's vacant before selling, or just deciding to convert, can you give us the timeline of the fire and any tenants or any effect on people living in the home when the fire happened?
So I don't know much because the requirement, this client didn't come in until maybe a few months back, but Brianna Rowland, who's an associate attorney in my office, did reach out to former tenants. But it is my understanding that the fire occurred and the tenants, were displaced and found other housing. But there was, I think at the time, the Ladowskis, teetered on whether or not to do rentals. And, I think they just, as at the time of filing this permit, they decided on conversions. I know, a lot of people still want to be landlords and, have rental units, but, it may be a time in their lives where it makes more sense to go this way. And I don't know of any sale at this point. So, they're getting the removal permit. So they may be moving forward on this on their own. Did that answer your question? Hello?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought maybe you couldn't hear me.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I guess I would kick this back. So yes, thank you. I think you've answered it with as much information as you have from your client. So thank you. I guess to my colleagues, do we need more information about, we had a previous client or a previous, not client, sorry, I'm not an attorney. We had a previous application where there was water damage that wasn't fixed and clients were displaced. And so the choice, there was intent, it was a question of was intent set then, or did they have responsibility to not displace the tenants due to damage to the house? You know what I mean? So I just don't know if we're supposed to be asking more questions around the fire, or if I'm crazy. So, or if that's out of our purview. So
Board Member Solis, if I remember correctly, I do recall, I think it was Sergeant Ave or somewhere around there, that property had a fire similar, and we asked a lot of these similar questions, and I think, once the fire takes place, people are displaced. As unfortunate as that is and traumatic, and I think it is out of our purvey as a board, but I would defer to Morena for guidance here.
I think it's you're right, Chair Zasloff. Just based on the ordinance saying that the requirement is to contact the tenants from the former 12 months. As the board has done in the past, they could request further information, but they wouldn't be able to sort of hold the permit or deny the permit based on the lack of further information.
Any other comments, questions from the board? I see the attorney Vigorito has her hand up.
Just one last thing, in the owner's affidavit, he does specifically state that the fire from September 16th of 2023 severely damaged the property and it did render it uninhabitable. I apologize, I didn't read directly from the affidavit, but I just wanted to make sure that, that was known, that, it wasn't just some water damage that could be immediately repaired. It was rendered uninhabitable.
And sorry, Chair Zasloff, can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry. So just to clarify, what you're saying is that the fire is what spurred this couple who I guess have owned the property for some time. That was the catalyst for the decision to convert.
No, it was not. No, it was not. No, that was they formed the decision at the filing of this application. I think at the time, and I'm not exactly sure what they did, but I represent, some developers who do, development of properties, actual construction sometimes. And, I think they, wanted to do necessary repairs. And I think, they have to, they wanted to recreate, rental properties, but, finances may have dictated this decision, in October to, take this route. It's unfortunate, but sometimes, finances have to override what, they've owned this property. I mean, I'm sure it's, without asking them, it can be lucrative to be a landlord, but sometimes if the finances aren't there to do the necessary repairs, I don't know if they could really, make it happen as quickly as they'd like. So this may be a better route for them. And this is conjecture. I haven't had, pertinent conversations because, we're required to find out what happened to the property, why it's vacant.
Yeah.
But I see this a lot because construction costs and so forth are very expensive.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
To board member Champion, I mean, is unfortunate, macabre as it may sound, the owner who has a tenanted building, and do not take this statement out of context, that, if there's an unfortunate situation such as a fire, you're left with, do I rebuild using insurance, or do I use that as an opportunity to sell and convert? So I think it's, every individual's decision and their financial situation, but, anytime there's a fire, I just, nothing really good comes from it. You have tenants displaced, you have somebody who owns a property who has to, make that decision to rebuild or sell. So I think these are situations that are just unfortunate all around for everyone involved. Any other commentary from the board?
No.
Questions? Okay. Motion to close the floor for board discussion. Motion to open the floor for public commenting. if anyone in the virtual audience would like to speak in favor or against the application for a preliminary rental conversion permit for units 1, 2, and 3 at 17 Buckingham Street, now would be the time to do so.
I don't see any hands.
Public commenting period is now closed. And in reviewing the documents that have been submitted so far, we do have the certificate of good standing dated 10/1. We have a final water bill paid as of 10/1. We have a quick claim deed in hand, checking the amount of $1,800 to cover the 3 units in question. At this time, we are still awaiting a master deed and engineer's report to be submitted. So I'm comfortable moving forward with making a motion for the board to vote on a preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3 at 17 Buckingham Street on the condition that the master deed and engineer's report is submitted to city staff at a future date.
Okay, this is a vote for preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3 at 17 Buckingham Street, conditioned as Chair Zasloff just stated. Chair Zasloff?
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne?
Yes.
Board Member Champion?
Yes.
Board Member Simeon?
Yes.
Board Member Solis?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last application in front of the board this evening for preliminary rental conversion permits is the application of Property Acquisition Group LLC, Michael DePlaza, who's seeking a preliminary rental conversion permit for unit 1 and 2 located at 54 Berkeley Street.
Good evening, Attorney Ann Vigorito for the applicant, 54 Berkeley Street condominium, Acquisition Group LLC. They're requesting a preliminary rental conversion permit for units 1, 2, and 3, which are located at 54 Berkeley Street. So before you this evening, you have a completed application. You have prior tenant contact information. You have emails to prior tenants notifying them of the applicant's intent to convert. You have a quick claim deed dated May 29th of 2024. Corporate information for the Property Acquisition Group LLC. You have a final water bill and receipt, certificate of good standing, and you have a check in the amount of $1,800 for the fees. So the applicant purchased this property on May 31st of 2024, and it has remained vacant since that time. The tenants who reside in Unit 1 voluntarily vacated their unit prior to the sale of the property approximately on or before May 31st of 2024. The tenants who resided in Unit 2 voluntarily vacated the unit on or before May 31st of 24. The names and contact information for the tenants are included with the application. The property is currently a 2-family dwelling, and the applicant intends to add a 3rd story to the existing building to create an additional unit. In addition, the applicant intends to construct a rear cottage, which is detached from the existing building. And this is recreating 1 new construction unit. The purpose of the units has been met since the property is vacant, and names and contact information for the tenants who resided in units 1 and 2 in the last 12 months prior to the submission of this application have been provided. The applicant is respectfully requesting a preliminary rental conversion for permit for units 1 and 2, and there is no structural engineer's report at this time, as well as you don't have a master deed, and the 1-year notice period needs to toll. One last thing, and I just want to clarify because it may cause confusion. When I talk about a rear cottage, that is not an additional unit. The way the summable zoning ordinance reads, the cottage would be an accessory use for one of the units. It cannot be a sleeping area generally, so it would be, just to give you examples, a playroom for children, perhaps, a home office, or something to that effect, but it is not a separate rental unit or condo unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Vigorito. On that note, motion to open the floor for board discussion, questions. Vice Chair Byrne, do you have
Yeah, I do. So my question is that it was a little confusing to me because when I first saw the application, it was for units 1, 2, and a excuse me, I lost that word, that the unit 3 was, a courtesy permit. And then got clarified that unit 3 was going to be into part of the building. So it was no longer a courtesy permit. It would have to be a regular permit, but but what the attorney just said now was unit 1 and 2, and it also, that's how it reads on our application here. So I think there just needs to be a correction about adding unit 3, am I right? Or is there something else I'm not seeing?
Are you asking that to me, Attorney Vigorito, or to the board? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure if I have to answer.
Oh, I think I'm asking it to everybody.
Okay, so my understanding is because they're constructing a new unit, it's like it's always been a courtesy permit because it wasn't there, so it's not being taken away. But whatever the board would want us to do to, it does read in the origin it does say units 1, 2, and 3. So
Chair Zasloff, if I may.
Yes, Maureen, I was hoping you could provide some color.
Yeah, so the originally, when I received the application, I was confused about units 3 and 4. And I will state that this is the first that I've heard that the cottage unit is not actually going to be a rental unit or a condo. So they won't be seeking a courtesy permit. So my original understanding of it was that unit 3 was going to be new construction when and so thus it would be a courtesy permit. But when I emailed with Attorney Rowland in Attorney Vigorito's office, she stated that it was unit 3 was going to encompass part of the building. And so if even though parts of the unit are new, if it's encompassing part of an existing structure, it then just becomes a regular permit. So in this case, a preliminary rental permit, and not a courtesy permit because it's not entirely new construction.
Okay. I have a follow-up question for Attorney Vigorito because when I hear language as of cottage, I think of, a small 1-bedroom studio unit in the backyard. And I guess I'm looking for clarification from, is it connected to the original structure, or is it a standalone sort of in the backyard? It's going to be converted to.
Yes, so Somerville zoning allows for what they call a cottage in the rear. It's not an additional unit, it's accessory to one of the others. So it's not like a 1-bedroom little studio and it's that's why, when I saw that with the cottage, I said, this is going to cause so much confusion. So I thought I could try to, lessen it. Construction, obviously, they haven't gone through zoning yet. They would have to, they'll determine which unit gets that accessory unit. And like I said, it's generally like maybe a home office. Some might use it as a playroom for children. And that decision might not be made until the unit's actually sold because, a lot of times you'd want to have it custom fit for whatever needs you have. And I apologize, Miranda, when she explained that, that was my understanding that we needed an actual preliminary because it was part of the main structure for the 3rd unit.
So,
Did I answer your question about the cottage, more importantly?
Yeah, I mean, again, this, I know that the zoning has allowed for the, accessory dwelling / cottage to be, to try to spur, additional housing and an affordable option. I guess my question would be, it's built, but it's left somewhat raw in
Well, not necessarily. I don't want to jump in like that.
to
It's generally, when they're marketing these units, they would say, could be custom fit. I mean, it's not going to be, there'll be walls and things of that nature. And not to get too far off the beaten course here, this is in an NR zoning district, so you can only have 3
Mhm.
residential.
Okay. Yeah, at the end of the day, I guess from my perspective, I would be comfortable with, I'm just giving my thought to the board. I would be somewhat comfortable with this because it still has to go in front of the zoning.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, they call them cottages, and I think that's, the meaning can mean, I agree. When I hear cottage, I think of a cute little cottage, maybe, on an island, a little Cape Cod or where. So it is a deceiving word.
Mhm. I'm curious if there's a lot of things that go into the master deed. And so I'm curious as to whether or not the designation about this cottage can go into the master deed stating, this is not a rental unit, stating this is, blah, blah, blah. Is that something that we can ask to go into the master deed?
I think,
I don't know if that was to me or to you. I mean, we're nowhere near a master deed situation. So, and I'm not the one who drafts them, fortunately. But I think, things that are designated in there, it would be called a cottage. I think, they know what it would be used for.
I mean, I guess just from my perspective, and I'll defer to Attorney Thiel, as I see he has his hand up, so we'll let the expert speak.
Expert might be a little bit generous, Chair. No, but I think Board Member Vernon does bring up a good point. So I think the concern regarding whether that cottage will be used, whether a permit, the board would have a check on that through the master deed. I think typically that is a requirement before the final permit. In different circumstances, we can't go into levels of detail. But I think this is a case where we can make a note to the file and have an opportunity to ensure that the cottage unit is truly a cottage. And that's something, whether it's me or Morena, we would have ample opportunity through the review of the master deed prior to a final conversion permit to confirm whether it be additional language.
No, thank you for that clarification. I guess the question would be for Morena and city legal. Are we able to condition it to where we can review the language in the master deed during the final permitting phase to fully understand or is that outside the? Additional permit? I'm wondering if we could build in a little bit of language that, conditioned upon clarity over the cottage in the master deed or I don't know.
I think that might be outside. My gut is that that's outside the board's purview. Attorney Thiel, if you disagree, please feel free to interject. Like he was saying, we do receive the master deed, or at least a close to final version of the master deed. So we can review it. Just to confirm, I don't know that conditioning it, since we don't make zoning decisions really.
And it will be gray area if that's left for interpretation. I fully understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a master deed perspective, it's it's going to have to be an accessory unit to one of the 2 units. And that language will be in the master deed, I would assume. So, I think maybe we're making more out of this than what's necessary. But Vice Chair Byrne, I believe you might have had something else to say.
Well, I'm actually, I was just gonna say, I'm not sure that it's a zoning issue. I think it's not about, it's not about how the area is zoned, because that's fine, but, I think, It's more about can it be used as a rental unit? Can it be used as something other than can it be a office space that is rented out to somebody to come on the property and have their office there? I'm not sure that I know. I'm not making the case that I know, right or wrong around this. It's just, I think that's just my question is, what can it be used for?
And I think that's where the zoning comes into play, right? They're the ones who designate usage.
Um, Chair Zasloff, it's Attorney Vigorito. Sorry to jump in, but I think I might be able to answer. So a fourth unit would violate zoning, yes, but the Inspectional Services Division, they enforce zoning and building code. I've seen this happen over the years. That would, if you rented it as an office or you try to rent it as a residential unit, it would be considered an illegal unit. ISD would come out and notify the owner, you're in violation, they would fine them. So, it's not like you'd be able to really get away with that. Over the years, we've seen it more with some of the older multifamilies. In a condo situation, I would be quite shocked to see that happen. But once again, inspectional services would come out and, you have a condo association. So I'm sure the other condo owners would be very upset and, would, probably, whoever that unit was, if they were trying to rent it out, whether it be an office or an illegal unit, there would be some harsh
Yeah,
backlash from the condo association. And once again, I'm trying to, address the question that was presented to the best of my ability, because, anything can happen. But I would be quite shocked because you live, 3 units like that. The other unit owners are going to see what's going on, and I'm sure they're not going to allow it.
fair enough. Okay. Any other questions or commentary from the board in regards to?
It's still confusing for me because when you said you need 1, you need 2, and you need 3, because this is what I heard the representative said, you need 1, 2, and 3. Now we have in front of us when you need 1 and 2, and which one where we want to go? Is that you need 3 units, 2 units? That's a little confusing right here.
Chair Zasloff, if I may.
Yes. For sure.
Board Member Simeon, sorry, I apologize. The agenda is incorrect because of my earlier confusion with the application. So before the board this evening, it should be preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3. And then what I had thought was going to be an added 4th residential unit, Attorney Vigorito is stating that it's not going to be used as a residential unit. It's not going to be a condo. So that's off the table. But the 3rd unit is still being added to the existing building. So it should be 1, 2, and 3.
And 3. All right. Thank you. Clear enough.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Any other questions, commentary from the board? All right, seeing no further discussion. Motion to close the floor for board discussion. Motion to open the floor for public commentary. Anyone in the virtual audience that can speak in favor or against this application at 54 Berkeley Street, now would be the time to do so.
I do have a hand.
All right. They can please state their name for the record.
Hi, everyone. My name's Emily Larson. Can you hear me?
Can.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to thank you guys. I actually felt the same way as Catherine. I was feeling very hesitant to come to this meeting. I just really appreciate having sat through this to hear that you guys really are attentive to the way that these processes work and are kind of trying the best you can to advocate on behalf of tenants. So there were 6 of us who lived in this house. I've been kind of deputized by my housemates to come and speak on our behalf. 5 out of the 6 of us could be characterized as lower income. We mostly worked in the arts, theater arts and textile arts. And I would kind of object to the characterization of our exit from the property as voluntary. We were notified, we were all tenants at will, but we were notified in January that our landlady intended to sell. She was doing so through a power of attorney to her cousin. So we ended up dealing with somebody that we had formerly really not had any kind of relationship with, had a really warm, long-standing relationship with our old landlady. But, you know, there was a variety of situations in the house. One of my housemates had been there for 10 years. And the ultimate outcome of this was that we were given notice to quit. We had 5 weeks notice to leave the property. And it was a pretty rough ride for all of us because we did not have the finances to remain in Somerville, even though many of us felt that that was our community. Sorry, guys, I'm gonna get emotional. 4 out of the 5 of us ended up having to leave the city altogether, and the remaining 2 had to leave Somerville. So I would characterize this conversion as a substantial change to the character of the neighborhood. And I would characterize this as like the actions of the people who purchased this property. They're trying to avoid the bare minimum of a modest financial payout to the people who are being displaced by this conversion. And there's absolutely no way that they're not going to make a lot of money, just a lot of money from this. And the type of people who are going to be able to afford those condos in that neighborhood after us are not going to be like us. So yeah, I feel like we're in the same position as the woman from the Boston Avenue property. I understand that there's probably no legal mandate that this has to happen, but it just seems like it would be a good faith gesture to make some kind of restitution to the people who are being evicted from their neighborhood and their community for this. And yeah, that's how I feel, and that's what our experience was. I mean, I've had to move to the other side of the state. I am part of the precariat in the sense that I work multiple part-time jobs, and I lost one of my part-time jobs that was in food justice work in that area because of the relocation. I mean, my life is still in pieces, and will be for a while. And, you know, we had people who had to move to Salem. One woman had to move in to a friend's basement in Maine. Like, it just really had a substantial effect on our lives. So that is kind of the basis. And then there's a couple of things that I just want to make note of as far as like how it felt to us in this property. But so we got notice at the end of March, and in the middle of April, on April 16th, we had a surveyor come by and just appear in our backyard with no notice. And the surveyor, when we came out to say like, hey, what are you doing here? There's just like a strange person in our backyard, said that he had been sent by the quote unquote new owners. But it's my understanding now that this property did not actually close until sometime in the month of May. So if you're coming by claiming to be the new owner and taking measurements of our property in April, but you don't actually own the property yet, like, that seems to me like pretty clear intent to be doing something substantial with the property. And then the other thing that just kind of really struck us wrong is like, on our move out date, which we moved out most of us on Saturday, April 27th, which again was before the closing date. So there was technically not a new owner. We had a man drive up in a Porsche in front of our house and get out and claim to be the new owner and just start swaggering around the property, basically looking at us like we were animals in a zoo while we're all moving out of our house. And just like grinning from ear to ear was like, it's a great day. It's a beautiful day to move. And it blew me away. It just blew me away that somebody would have the lack of sensitivity and tact to do something like that. And then the other thing that I really wondered, and he was asking these invasive questions too about like whether or not we were all leaving. He was very interested in whether or not we were all going to be gone by that day. What I want to know is if he wasn't technically or legally the owner at that point, like who violated our privacy enough to tell him that that was the day that we were moving. It was very unpleasant. So I think that's what I have to say on our behalf.
Thank you for that heart-wrenching testimony. We're in a peculiar situation here in the city of Somerville, and it feels like no matter how much effort we put into trying to stopgap the displacement, there's always these workarounds and stuff. So I appreciate your testimony, and I feel for your situation, as not to speak for my fellow colleagues, but I know we're all passionate about the roles we play on this board, and it pains us when we hear these type of stories. So that's not going to offer you any sort of justice for what you've been through, but it's what I can offer at this time for you. So on that note, I
appreciate that, but it's, it feels like the bare minimum of a payment,
Yeah. No,
in a case like this, maybe would have allowed us to pursue remaining in Somerville, but without any warning and without any kind of financial cushion or without any kind of restitution for this, we couldn't do it. It's like, that our landlady had kept our rent very affordable, which was the only way. It was the only way that we were there, like, period. And on short notice to have to find another apartment in that area at the market rate was just like, forget it for most of us. So
yeah. Open the floor for board. Anyone on the board like to make a statement? Anything to Emily?
I would, of course. So one, Emily, I just want to say how incredibly sorry I am that this has happened to you and it has happened to all of you. And the fact that the city actually talks about wanting to keep artists, musicians here, wants to make this a safe place for artists and musicians. And then this is what happens to you. It is just heartbreaking. And what I would encourage you to do, and I don't know if you have the wherewithal to do this, but your former city councilor is Ben Ewan Campen, and he is the president of the city council. And I would encourage you to write up your story, to send that to Ben, to let him know what this was like for you and for all of you there, because the city council is the place where decisions are made around the condominium ordinance. And I would also just encourage the purchaser of this property to get outside his Porsche and give you guys some money, because that's so unfair what's happened to you. And I'm really sorry that happened.
Jennifer here. I echo what Board Member Byrne is saying. I also don't know how long I'm going to be remaining in Somerville due to what's been happening in cost. So I hear you. I guess my question is, you know, so this keeps, and this is to the board, this keeps happening where, you know, there isn't intent necessarily with the seller, but like, so in my opinion, and I don't know all of the facts, and we haven't heard from the applicant's attorney on you know, her feedback to, or rebuttal for lack of a better term, to this. So, but I mean, having a surveyor come over or announcing themselves as the owner, like, I don't know, is there anything in that we need to dig at a little more to see if anything around intent? Or, I mean, were there any conversations the tenants had with either the new? So here's where I get confused. We always run into this where it's someone buying and they're ready to convert. And I say always, I mean 9 times out of 10, right? They're going to convert to their application. But it's like, and this is my personal lived experience as well. Like my landlord at 15 Porter Street told me he was asking me to leave because his son was moving in. And of course he sold it. And of course they wanted to convert to condos. So like I couldn't, anyways, it's just like, I would think that the new owner, the applicant, if they did send the survey over, I don't know, who was that survey, or what were they surveying? Were they from the city? Was it related to condoizing, or was it just assessing the property in general? Like, is there anything we need to further explore to make sure that somehow intent wasn't set, you know, while they were still there? You know, saying it's a beautiful day for moving is the most disgusting thing I've heard since joining the board, but that doesn't, you know, help us do anything. But is there anything we can dig at here, or are we in the same situation we were before? So that's to my fellow board members. Is there anything worth pushing on here, or no, not really?
I mean, I think we're, you know, hamstrung with what we're able to enforce within the framework of the current ordinance. I mean, the best we can do from our standpoint is make a plea to the representative and the new owner to, you know, make right by the previous tenant, similar, but again, that's not enforceable. It's, you know, a long shot. And unfortunately, that's the current state that we're in our position here on the board in the current framework. I mean, I think this is probably the 6th meeting in a row where we've gone round and round with similar situations. I mean, I really think it's time that, you know, we voice our concerns, you know, loud and proud to the council members that they're not doing enough to protect tenants' rights. While they may say it and they may believe it, the facts are it's not enough. So they're the ones with the power to effectuate change. And it's, you know, our ability to voice our concerns, to put the pressure on them to effectuate change and other members of the community.
Well, to that point, I'd like to say when I do submit something to Benue and Campen, it's going to paraphrase this meeting, and it's a beautiful day for moving with the applicant's name attached to it, because it's disgusting.
Can I say the one thing that made me feel really gratified in that moment is that we had like a community effort. Like a lot of our friends came over to help us move, and one of them shot back right away to him, yes, it's a beautiful day to evict 6 Somerville artists in the name of gentrification. She said that to his face. And then he got back in the car and left. So.
Okay.
I think that's about time, you know, for the representatives around Somerville to get something done. because it's like every single time that the same things over and over, same complaint.
Broken record at this point.
Yes.
Okay, Attorney Vigorito has been patiently waiting with her hand up. I would like to give her an opportunity to speak.
Apologies, I didn't realize I didn't lower my hand, but to the question of, or I think it was Jennifer about a surveyor, generally banking institutions, when there's a when they're financing a project, they do need a certified plot plan. So my educated guess, because we were not involved in this closing, but my office does an abundance of conveyancing work. My guess is it was, the banking institution that was financing the property that had, there was probably a requirement. And I think, once again, my educated guess is the bank notified the owner of the property at the time before, the applicant here purchased it, that, they would be out there, and it sounds like the landlord failed to, let the tenants know, which is terrible. I represent a lot of landlords just in general, and, I tell them you must give as much notice as possible to tenants. I'm a landlord myself. I've had tenants living in my multifamily where I live for 13, 14 years because, you work it that way. And I try to give that same type of advice to, my clients in that situation. I know nothing of this property owner, pulling up to the home in a Porsche. I know nothing of that. I do know that Attorney Rowland from my office did reach out to Ms. Larson, and I think it was Kate Hostler had responded, or she'd been the one that, because I'm looking at the email, and she indicated to Attorney Rowland that she would be speaking to the press about the situation, because she was asking for, for some sort of, money, for relocation fees. And I know Attorney Rowland, did say, well, in the ordinance, it's not required of a new owner, but, I think she did offer to, talk through attorney, because the former owner, I think, is represented by an attorney, and I will have Attorney Rowland reach out to their attorneys tomorrow relative to the situation. But I know nothing of, an owner pulling up to the property and saying those things. It just, I'm a little shocked, and my heart goes out to anyone that's, displaced out of their home. But
I want to say that the response to Kate's email was, we don't owe anything to former tenants.
yeah, that's actually the response, and I didn't know who that was speaking. Apologize. I see what Attorney Rowland wrote. She does say, good morning. The relocation fee does not apply to former tenants that are not tenants of the current owner. I think she tried to be clear and point, and I know the board has been discussing this all night, and yes, this last 6 meetings, I think I've been at several of them, so I understand what's going on. But I will have Attorney Rowland discuss with the attorney for the former owner, what has gone on this evening.
Okay. Attorney Vigorito, thank you. I would, you're in front of this board regularly. I think you're a great representative for the city and your clients, and you've worked a long time in the city of Somerville and surrounding areas. I would, again, as I stated earlier with the other situation, encourage you to talk to your client, try to convince them to do the honorable thing, and, consider a form of compensation for the displacement. Obviously, Emily, for the record, we can't make that happen. We can only give a recommendation. And Attorney Vigorito, being an outstanding attorney and someone who's in front of this board frequently, I would have the confidence that she would relay that message and hopefully persuade her client to have a conscience and do the right thing. Okay.
I'd just like to add one more thing. I also think that it wouldn't be, I don't know if I'm crossing a line by saying this, a bad idea to have those conversations with your clients before the meetings though. Like, you know, I mean, a lot of this all seems, every time we have a meeting, and I don't mean to direct it at you, but I mean to other attorneys, it's like a surprise, like, oh, people were displaced, like we had no idea, like, oh, and it's just like, I don't know, you know.
That's a good point, Board Member Solis. And again, for the attorneys out there, like your role is to, you know, advise your clients. And part of that advising your clients is, you know, as they're trying to navigate this approval process, part of that advising should be, hey, things probably go smoother if we have tenants that are being displaced. Let's go ahead and do the right thing, give them some compensation for their unfortunate situation that they find themselves in, to no fault of their own. And the approval process goes smoother, and it's just much smoother for everyone all around. So I would just again state that as consideration when advising your clients. Doing the right things up front makes all things happen a lot smoother, and karma is repaid down the road for everyone involved. So, all right. On that note, I will close the public commenting period unless there's anyone else in the virtual audience who'd like to speak. Seeing there's no one else.
Sorry, no, I don't see any hands.
Okay. Again, here we are facing a reoccurring theme of 2024 for the Condo Review Board, with similar situation month over month. On that note, in reviewing the application in front of us, we've got the preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3 at 54 Berkeley Street. And at this time, we do have the certificate of good standing dated 9/23. We have a paid water bill dated 10/15. We have a quitclaim deed included. We have a check in the amount of $1,800 to cover the 3 units in question. This time, we are still waiting on a master deed and an engineer's report to be submitted at a future date. So I'm going to make a motion for the board to vote on a preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1 and 2 and 3 at 54 Berkeley Street on the condition that a master deed and engineer's report is submitted to city staff at a future date, and also condition that consideration is taken by the new owner to consciously do the right thing and compensate the former tenants if they seem that would be something that they would consider. So that those are the 3 conditions. Obviously, 2 of them are only enforceable. The third one is a recommendation to be conditioned with it.
Okay, this is a vote for preliminary rental conversion permits for units 1, 2, and 3 at 54 Berkeley Street, conditioned as Chair Zasloff just stated. Chair Zasloff?
Yes.
Vice Chair Byrne?
I'm not sure what I can do. I feel like I'm supposed to say yes to this. And yet my conscience and my gut says I want to say no. So I think I'm gonna go with my conscience and my gut and just say no.
Okay, Board Member Champion?
Yes, but understand and reflect Kate's feelings as well.
Okay, Board Member Simeon?
Yes.
Board Member Solis,
I feel like I have to say yes, so yes.
okay, with 4 yeses and a no, the motion passes.
Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. So, this has been a tough meeting tonight. We're 2 hours and 16 minutes into it, and seems like each month they get tougher and tougher. So again, to the attorneys out there listening, please come to the board.
I think Chair Zasloff froze.
Yeah, he usually comes
Yeah.
back in like a minute, so maybe give him a minute to see if he comes back.
Yeah,
And if not, I don't know, close the meeting, I guess. Yeah, maybe he's not coming back.
yeah. Vice Chair Byrne,
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this or not, so strike it from the record if I'm not supposed to say this, but I have already reached out to Ben Campen a couple of times about the need for some changes in this ordinance. And I would encourage other people to also reach out to him and reach out to your local whatever they are, those people over there at City Hall. Sorry. It's getting late and I'm tired.
I just have a question. I don't know if it's an appropriate place to ask or not, but it'll be the last thing I say. I know we can't be in violation of like meeting outside of the public meeting, right? And so I get that, and I absolutely want to uphold that. But maybe Marina offline, you could send me like, if we were to all, like, can we write a letter to get, like, is there anything we can do as a unit to the city council about how we are operating and what we feel like is lacking? Or, I guess again, you can send it to me and fully want to comply with, not trying to meet outside of public meeting space. But
We
I feel
can't
like
meet as a group, but we can meet individually with Miranda.
yep,
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
that's right.
But
Okay.
another thing, I feel like those people, as a voter, and in the city, you elect your guys, and then I think that's another thing the activists or the group of the people living around can push on. Certain things I think we as a board member we cannot do unless those guys act on it. I don't know what you guys you're feeling on that.
Can I just say to everybody's points, I feel like, like we're the users of the ordinance, and it's like anything, if you're the user of a car and the car is not working right, like you can say something to the technician, and I feel like we should be able to kind of reflect back, like this isn't working, and there's a pattern that we're noticing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be us trying to, as a group do something outside of the meetings, but I think it's just a reflection of like, this is coming up over and over and over again. It's a pattern. And I think that there's a loophole that, purchasers are finding, whether they intend to or not. And that needs to be ironed out. And so whether we can, put that in writing and send it as a group, or we can do that individually, I feel like that's perfectly, I don't see why that would be a problem. Yeah.
I see.
And just a quick file, and I think I don't mean to cut off the board's discussion on this point. I think it's an important discussion. What I would maybe recommend though is that you could discuss this matter in an open session, and the board could make an action that could, about sending a letter directing staff to draft and subsequently approve. I think it should be taken up though as a separate agenda item, potentially at a future meeting, and that would be an avenue for you all to discuss the priorities of the board, ways to convey that, and we can have further discussions. And you'd have to do it in open session, But I think we are even now kind of skirting to, we don't have this as an agenda item.
Yeah.
So just being careful of.
Yeah. So
notifying.
with that advice, I would recommend, Morena, let's put this on the agenda for next month, have a board discussion, and we can address it formally and within the confines of open meeting laws and make sure we're following city procedures correctly.
Okay.
And can I just ask quickly on that? Is it possible? I don't know what the rules around a special item like this would be, but the people who've spoken today, for example, is it possible to kind of invite them back as part of that conversation, or does it have to be whatever the agenda is that day and the people that happen to be there that day? If it's unrelated to the cases we've already, heard as a board. I don't know. I'm not sure. And I guess I'm wondering, like, is it the same procedure? Like, do we open it up for public comment and then we hear what people?
So
who have to say?
again, to stay in the confines of an open meeting law and sticking to the agenda that's been provided, let's all frame our questions and send them over to Morena ahead of the next meeting where it will be on the agenda, and all those questions will be answered prior to it coming on the agenda. As opposed to this open discussion that we're having here, we're getting into a very gray area, and I see Joe starting to sweat.
Sounds good.
Ready in the first 2.5. Right.
Oh,
All right, folks, fellow board members. Sorry the meeting had to be so emotional, and but we're doing what we've been tasked to do, and we're doing the right thing. So on that note, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, third, fourth, yes.
yeah, we adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.